It's Tuesday. You know what time it is. Frontrunner Podcast Collective is back on the air. I am your humble host, Vince, and we have a jam-packed podcast that we are going to get to. We're going to be discussing the Kawhi Leonard, Steve Ballmer, Clipper fiasco that is going on, or lack thereof. We're also going to be discussing the Cam Thomas signing with the Brooklyn Nets and what it all means as far as the ramifications. And we will talk a little bit about who signed today, because today's signing was Josh Giddey, 4-year deal for $100 million. We're not going to talk real specific about that. We'll hit that on the Friday podcast. We will end the podcast talking about the new setup for the All-Star game, and I can't wait to get to that part. Before we get to the pod and what have you, let's talk about two things. One, join us on Twitter at FrontrunnerPC, also at Rhea_Funch FRPC. Hit us up there. Multiple times. And also, if your comments, your replies are good enough, they will hit the podcast. We cannot say this enough. Your comments on Twitter, or also if you would like to leave us a email, you can hit us up at frpcvince@gmail.com. I will go ahead and take that as well. But we are off and running today. So let's get into this, because there's a lot to be going on with this Clipper situation. So, as you all know, Kawhi Leonard, Steve Ballmer, and an environmental fintech called Aspiration. The charge sheet reads like a Scooby-Doo plot mystery. There's a $28 million endorsement situation going on. Owners' cash flowing into the sponsor, and whispers of salary cap circumvention. And the gang, Velma, Pablo Torre, this isn't just the first unmasking. He's already pulled off the mask on the NFLPA misappropriation of funds scandal. He spotlighted the curious ties of Bill Belichick and Jordan Hudson, and now he's lifting the sheet on the Clippers' alleged sponsorship workaround to augment Kawhi Leonard's salary situation. Pablo Torre has been busy this summer. You know, he's been a lot busier than the NBA. Seems like the NBA took a couple months off. We appreciate that, but I think what they need to do is give us a memo next time. That would help us, like, line up stuff that we want to do instead of guessing. You know, be helpful to a brother, you know what I'm saying? What's alleged? What's documented? The gaps in between, we will go ahead and look at this, and we will give you like our 35,000 foot POV on this situation. Soraya drops this note into the chat, the first beat. This is basically talking about competitive balance. This is draft assets and the Clippers brand runway of the Intuit Dome. You know what I'm saying? This is going to be really complicated to kind of talk about, but we hope that we can really give you as much information as possible. So this all starts, if you know Kawhi Leonard and you know what he is all about, there's always been a specter around Kawhi. And it always starts with Uncle Dennis. Dennis Robertson. This is the uncle of Kawhi Leonard. He plays a central role in the split of the San Antonio Spurs, clashing over medical mismanagement over Kawhi Leonard's quad injury. The Spurs lose Kawhi's trust. Uncle Dennis escalates and demands a trade out. Now he goes to the Toronto Raptors, where he goes on to win a championship and then hits free agency. Now, if you remember back then, like I know all you do, because it was only like 5-6 years ago, but if you remember back then, we had airplane trackings. We had, Kawhi is on his way to Toronto to sign a new deal. We had him spotted at a couple of restaurants in the Pacific Palisades area, Calabasas area. There were talks of Kawhi Leonard basically stringing the Lakers along. We'll get into that momentarily. Behind it all, we had Uncle Dennis. Let's get into this. Kawhi leaves in July of 2019. Kawhi leaves Toronto to ink a 3-year deal for $103 million. The recruitment tracker of that situation, but no penalties or what have you with that whole deal, right? So he signs a deal with the Clippers. Now, as that is going on, there's talks of Kawhi Leonard ending up with the Lakers. And there was a belief that he was going to be a Laker. As you start to look further into it, there were demands made by Dennis Robertson at that time, asking for amenities and perks for Kawhi's services that Jeannie Buss was not comfortable with. So he goes ahead and signs with the Clippers, which with everybody that I've talked to, that was always going to be the case. I don't know why, but it was. When that situation happened, there was thoughts of, hey, was there some kind of chicanery going on at that point in time? Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner, looks into it, says, okay, hey, nothing here that we need to worry about. We advise you to stay on your P's and Q's. Now, September of 2021, the Clippers break ground on the Intuit Dome. The same month that Aspiration arrives, a 23-year, $300 million sponsorship deal and $50 million of Steve Ballmer's investment into the company, while Kawhi Leonard is rehabbing his ACL. In April of 2022, Kawhi Leonard has a LLC companies called KL2 Aspire, signs a $28 million endorsement agreement with Aspiration, payments scheduled quarterly through March of 2026. June of 2023, Clippers claim Aspiration sponsorship ends after the 2022-2023 season. So that's basically at the end of the season right there. January of 2024, Kawhi re-ups with the Clippers. 3 years, $153 million through 2027. No player options. That's key. So he signs basically a $51 million deal with the Clippers to re-up with them. And he has no player option. There's no team option. It's just 3 years straight up. March of 2025, Aspiration, the company, files for bankruptcy. Creditors list includes the Clippers, $30 million. Forum Entertainment, $11 million. And KL2 Aspire, $7 million. August of 2025, last month. Aspiration co-founder Joseph Sandberg pleads guilty to fraud, faces 40 years of real, actual time. Now, in early last week, Pablo Torre drops his bombshell podcast. NBA announces another investigation into the Clippers, issues of categorical denials of basically salary cap circumvention. Says probably false. I don't know how they can say probably false. Well, we'll see. This note dropped in by Soraya. Uncle Dennis isn't a side character. He's a connective tissue to the Spurs exit, the Lakers Clippers recruitment, and now this circumvention whispers all feature his fingerprints all over it. The pattern analysis matters as much as a paper trail. Let's get into the money, because that's where it comes down to. Exhibit C, the financial flow chart on one side of the ledger, Kawhi Leonard's contracts. So in 2019, we talked about he signed a 3-year deal for $103 million. Now, if you look at that contract and you look at what he was coming off of, right? He was coming off of a championship situation with the Toronto Raptors. He signs a deal that looks to be below market. And people could say, well, you know, that was a max at the time. I think there was actually a little bit more on the table with that. Now, he also, in 2024, signs a 3-year extension for $153 million, no outs. Now, on the other side, the aspiration endorsement of $28 million to Kawhi's company, KL2 Aspire, signed in April of 2022, structured as a quarterly payments through March 2026. The allegations isn't that Kawhi got paid. Every star cashes sponsor checks all the time. The allegation is the intent that Steve Ballmer, $50 million investment into Aspiration, creates a loop of owner, sponsor, player designed to augment Kawhi's deal outside the salary cap. So, if you look back to the first contract, right, the $103 million, that was a little light for Kawhi Leonard. If you are Steve Ballmer, now I don't know this to be true. I'm just painting a picture here. If you're saying, hey, we can get you on the back end because you live in LA, we're going to get you a lot of sponsorship deals, what have you. This is something that the Lakers is in the Lakers playbook. It has been in the Lakers playbook for more than a decade. Every time they tried to get a free agent to sign, they said, we have very lucrative sponsorship deals that you can get involved with that can help you. You know, it's not just about basketball, it's about building your brand as a Laker. So this is not new in the NBA. These things happen all the time. Now, what makes this a slippery slope is the Ballmer involvement. You know what I'm saying? The $50 million investment that he made into Aspiration, which he says is like a 3% owner stake in that company. Steve Ballmer makes $1 billion off dividends from Microsoft every single year. I'm sure he has his fingers in a lot of pots. He says that he had no clue about this company in the sense of, you know, how they did business, how they conducted business. He thought it was a good idea. He thought it was something that he could get behind, but he didn't really check into it. And, you know, that's where he's kind of standing. Now, allegedly, you can sit there and say, hey, you're Steve Ballmer. You are worth bunches of billions of dollars. Okay, I think Steve Ballmer is worth something like $154 billion or something like that. Something crazy. And I just don't understand how somebody as successful as Steve Ballmer can sit there and tell us that, hey, I really didn't do my P's and Q's. I didn't dot every I. I didn't cross every T when it came to this company. That's amazing to me. I find that to be a little disingenuous personally. Lurking in the margins is Uncle Dennis. Back in 2019, sources say that he asked both LA teams for perks, houses, planes, and amenities for Kawhi and himself. The league found nothing as far as a paper trail that will be punishable. But the precedent echoes. Now, with this endorsement clauses resurfacing, the question is did those as evolve evolved into more sophisticated forms of compensation. It's like Uncle Dennis was going to get his money. That's what we know. Think of Uncle Dennis as a recurring Scooby-Doo villain. He doesn't get unmasked every episode, but he's always in the hallway when the lights flicker. The league scope of this investigation, the NBA has announced that it's commencing an investigation into whether the Clippers crossed the cap line. Will look for, as far as falls into 3 buckets: the paper trail of the Ballmer $50 million investment in Aspiration indirectly funds Kawhi's $28 million endorsement. Any emails, memos, or clauses that connect the owner's money to the player benefit will be scrutinized. Deliverables. What did Kawhi do for Aspiration? Where are the campaigns, the social posts, appearances, or if this was a no-show contract? Did anyone inside the Clipper or Ballmer orbit talk about endorsements as a way to offset Kawhi's contract? The Clippers' defense is straightforward. Sponsor signs players all the time. They had no hand in Kawhi's deal with Aspiration. And then Aspiration defaulted, and calling this a circumvention is absurd. That's a Clippers stance. Here is where Uncle Dennis re-enters the corridor. In 2019, whispers about he asked the Lakers and Clippers for benefits outside the 4 corners of the CBA. If the NBA now sees termination clause leaking Aspiration's deal to Kawhi's Clipper employment, the precedent of Uncle Dennis' aggressive ask becomes relevant again. So in Scooby-Doo terms, this is where Velma would shine a flashlight on footprints in the hallway. Not yet proof of the monster, but clues that someone has been here before. Soraya drops this in the chat. No show is a loaded phrase. Lack of public deliverables doesn't prove fraud. The real question is, were private appearances logged, or is the paperwork this thin? That's the difference between circumstantial smoke and actionable fire. So if other stars sign sponsorship deals, why single out Kawhi? You got timing, owner funding, and team contingent clauses. Put those 3 things together, and you got a case for is worth a subpoena. Now let's get to some of the things that we do know of, because this is not the first time that there's been contract chicanery. I'm going to take you back to the year 2000. You got Joe Smith in the Minnesota Timberwolves. There was a secret side deal, was uncovered by investigators. It led to a $3.5 million fine to the Minnesota Timberwolves and the owner at the time, Glenn Taylor. A loss of 5 first-round draft picks. A year-long suspension for GM and owner. And Joe Smith's contract was voided, making him a free agent. That's a nuclear example. Today's CBA Article 13 lays out it in black and white. Fines up to $7.5 million, loss of draft picks, voiding of contracts, suspension clawbacks is all fair game. I'm telling you right now, if for some reason the NBA can tie the Clippers or Ballmer to this Aspiration deal, and specifically that $50 million tied to his $28 million appearance fee or whatever it was, as far as what he was endorsing, because we still don't know what he was endorsing. And as Pablo Torres said in his podcast, there was never any kind of actionable situation that Kawhi was involved with this company. If they can tie that all together, we got some real ramifications that are about to come out. Somebody in the Clippers organization is going to say, jinkies, Picks are most likely the hammer. Voiding Kawhi's contract would be existential, but even losing 2 first-round draft picks would gut the Clippers' retool window in the Intuit Dome. You know what I'm saying? It will be absolutely amazing. The Wolves lost 5 first-rounders, so imagine that in today's West. Could you see that? This is what the NBA is going to be looking at. Kawhi Leonard, the star, is at the center. On record, team-friendly contracts in 2021 and in 2024. Each time leaving money on the table. Off record, $28 million of endorsements with Aspiration. That just happens to fill in the gap. Incentive, maybe. Keeps maximum flexibility while staying in Los Angeles. Now you get to Steve Ballmer. Billion-dollar owner. He can outspend anyone legally, but the league doesn't allow unlimited checkbooks because we got now the new CBA, right? We got stuff coming. These things are talked about years in advance. So when we finally got the whole situation about, the aprons and how it's going to work and all this type of thing, know that front offices knew about these things. Now, they might have not known every single detail when it came to the salary cap and how the collective bargaining agreement was going to end up being. But they had a pretty good, scalpel model of what was going to happen. So his incentives to secure Kawhi long term, to christen the Intuit Dome, protect brand value, and avoid appearing like the NBA's richest owner gaming the rules. You can do that with an endorsement deal. The Clippers organization, the middleman, public line, sponsorship ended in 2023. We knew nothing of fraud. We're corroborating fully their incentive to prove this was an isolated sponsor player deal and not a franchise level circumvention. And then you got the league office. They are going to be the judge, the jury, and the executioner when it comes to this. Silver's incentive is to guard the integrity of the salary cap. Also, remember, he is beholden to all 30 owners. Already a mistrust or some of the smaller market owners, right? Like in the Midwest and things of that nature. We're looking at you, Memphis. We're looking at some of these other teams, right? You got a situation where they look at the Lakers, the Clippers, the Golden State Warriors, the New York Knicks, teams like that, and they go, hey, they have a competitive advantage that we cannot give to these players, so we have to figure out ways, help ourselves be able to stay competitive when it comes to being able to keep our players, be able to get players from other teams and what have you via free agency. So the only way to do that is through, having some hammer in the salary cap. That's where the aprons come involved. If seen as soft, competitive balance erodes. If he's seen as draconian, owners will revolt. His role is presiding judge in the court of Adam Silver. I just look at it like this. You have a situation where if you talk about the Indiana Pacers of the world, the Cleveland Cavaliers of the world, the Milwaukee Bucks, we already talked about the Memphis Grizzlies, the Minnesota Timberwolves, Portland Trail Blazers, throw them in there. I wouldn't even say Atlanta. Atlanta's a big city. But you know what I'm talking about. Charlotte Hornets. You got these teams that are struggling to, they know they have to draft well. They know they have a finite window to be able to show their, potential superstar, hey, you can win here. You can be famous here. You can get all your endorsements through here. All we are asking for you to do is to stay patient and also be loyal to us. Which 9 times out of 10 doesn't happen, because they go to greener pastures usually. Now, we have hit some sort of impasse in the last I would say last 5 or 6 years, where guys are staying with their team. But as soon as something goes wrong, what did we hear about Giannis all summer long? All summer long, it was like, well, if Milwaukee doesn't do anything, or they don't do as much as they could, Giannis could want to walk. He will ask for a trade. That's all we heard. So how Adam Silver deals with this is going to be very important. And then there's Uncle Dennis Robertson. He's a recurring phantom in this whole deal. He clashed with the San Antonio Spurs organization over injury management. And then in 2019, we talked about how he pitted the Lakers versus the Clippers, asked for perks and things of that nature. Houses, planes, amenities. And now we have this situation. We have all the recipe for intrigue and shadow deals and, under the table situations, and we don't know if any of it's true. It all has to be brought out into the light by the NBA's investigation of what's going on. But the way Pablo Torre put it is that that Kawhi Leonard didn't really do anything for this company whatsoever. And there is the smoking gun of the $50 million that Steve Ballmer put into the company. We obviously, that's where the paper trail is going to be the most important thing. Because if for some reason Steve Ballmer was naive enough or just didn't think that he could get caught, if there's any sort of email or text message thread that indicates some situation like that, the Clippers are going to lose a ton of stuff at the most inopportune time. Because keep in mind, Kawhi Leonard is like 33, 34 years of age. James Harden is 30, 35, 36 years of age. They are coming to the end of the road. And if there's no draft picks to augment the situation that's going on with the Clippers, as they kind of move into this next phase of whatever the Clippers are going to be, the Clippers go back to being a team that will be in the lottery, but not for themselves. Because those picks will not be there. It's not just about contracts and cap sheets. It's about the Clippers' crown jewel, which is the Intuit Dome, and the events that are scheduled there to host. The Dome isn't just an arena. It's a 3-year runway of visibility. 2024-2025 is the first full season. That was last year, inside their $2 billion home that Steve Ballmer basically flipped the bill for. In 2026, the NBA All-Star Weekend, the Dome Global Party Coming Out Party. And then in 2028, they are going to be hosting the Olympic basketball tournament in that dome, under the brightest lights possible. If this investigation concludes with sanctions, especially draft pick penalties or a voided contract, the optics are brutal. It's not just competitive fallout, it's branding crisis. Because here's the other thing. If they don't have these picks, these naming rights and everything are very lucrative to the franchise. It is absolutely one of the things that kind of keeps them afloat. And do you want your name on a building that is involved in such like incestuous type situations like this? Probably not. And then there's the sponsorship ecosystem. Bankruptcy filings list the Clippers $30 million and Forum Entertainment as $11 million among Aspiration's creditors, alongside Kawhi's LLC. Even if the team cleared partners will look hard at the deal structure. Due diligence sharpens when smoke touches the building. Here's the other thing, the basketball fallout. This is where we get into it. On papers, the Clippers roster was built to contend through 2027. This is before they signed Kawhi Leonard. We talked about it. 3 years, $153 million. His running mate, Paul George, was stunned by that deal, was caught completely off guard, and then he was embroiled in a contract dispute with the Clippers. The Clippers wanted to sign him for less years. He wanted 4 years. He didn't get 4 years, and then he was off to Philadelphia in a sign and trade situation. So he bolted for Philadelphia in the summer of 2024, uniting with another superstar that carries his own injury baggage in Joel Embiid. The shock wasn't just PG leaving, it was Kawhi's extension dropped in the middle of the 2023-2024 season. The Clippers extended Kawhi, catching George off guard. The message, Kawhi was the franchise anchor, no question. George, sensing both diminishing leverage and deja vu with perpetually injured co-star, chose a fresh start in Philly, ironically trading one injury-prone elite wing for a injury-prone MVP type center in Joel Embiid. That leaves Ballmer's Clippers with a new identity crisis. They had to sign James Harden for a lucrative deal. You look at all that, you see what they've done this offseason. They got Brad Beal to bring in. And as far as contending is concerned, there's no one, like, if you look at the Vegas odds, it doesn't have the Clippers like top 3 or anything to be able to contend for the West. They're down in that like soup mix of like the Lakers and Minnesota Timberwolves, the Golden State Warriors, and all those type of things. Dallas Mavericks are in there, a couple other teams. You know, the teams that are at the top of the totem pole obviously are the Oklahoma City Thunder. Everybody loves what Houston did this year, and also the Denver Nuggets. Those are the top 3 teams in the West as far as when you look at odds and look at what Vegas is talking about, who could actually win the West. You do all of that. You do all of that for this. If for some reason any of this is true, and right now we're saying allegedly, right? We don't have it. Paulo Torre believes that he has it all locked up, but we don't know. So going off of that situation, if the draft picks are forfeited, it's the cleanest hammer Silver can drop without detonating the roster directly. But in practice, it cripples the Clippers. They don't have Paul George anymore. Harden is on a shorter timeline. Depth pieces and connective tissue of a contender are almost always replenished through picks. Cheap rookies or trades sweetened with draft capital. If those picks vanish, the Clippers are stuck in the most dangerous NBA middle. Too talented to tank and too asset starved to retool. You gotta throw money at the problem. What happens if we kind of go back to the year 2000, right? We go back to the future, basically. If the contract is voided or amended, that's a doomsday file. Voiding Kawhi's contract after PG has already bolted, it's a franchise reset overnight. Because here's the thing, they're not just going to void his contract, they're going to take picks away. So you're going to be bad, and you're not going to have picks to be able to replenish. The Clippers would lose their identity. piece, their draw for the Intuit Dome, their competitive anchor. Remember this, it isn't just about the Clippers. The NBA knows voiding Kawhi's deal would send shockwaves through every locker room. There will be fines. Money will talk. Now, would it be justified? I don't know. Let me tell you right now, Steve Ballmer would gladly just pay $7.5 million as a rounding error, but the real damage is the perception. Nobody would care about that. He'd be like, here, you want $7.5 million for me to get out of this? Chump change. I can find that in my couch cushions. No big deal. He would love that. If he wasn't giving up picks and he wasn't giving up voiding Kawhi's contract, because that's the star that's keeping people in the seats in that building. You know what I'm saying? Because remember, they made a run last year. I mean, I know Denver beat them, but those were really competitive games. And it really gave, the look of the Intuit Dome as a place where it's hard to play. Punishments are just penalties. Picks forfeited is asset strangling of the Clippers. Contracts voided, Kawhi's extension undone. I'm going to tell you right now, that situation, those are the nuclear options. Soraya just chopped this in the chat. The irony is brutal. PG left to escape with co-star with health volatility, only to team up with Embiid. For the Clippers, losing PG plus facing possible pick sanctions could shrink the 4-year competitive window to a 2-year sprint. And how much money can you spend at this? Can you spend enough money to circumvent what has happened to you? That will be the question. Who knows? Maybe there's sanctions on what you can spend during free agency. Be wild to think. The investigation will crawl. Don't expect a verdict before spring. League investigators will comb through Aspiration's bankruptcy filings, subpoena internal Clipper emails, and cross-check whether deliverables ever existed. For fans, this means a cloud hangs over the season. But for the team, it just keeps playing. For a team that has aspirations of winning 50-plus games, with a healthy Kawhi Leonard, these off-court distractions could basically seal the tomb of the Clippers. At a minimum, expect a memo tightening rules around owner investment, team sponsors, and player endorsements. Even if the Clippers walk away innocent, they'll become the NBA's compliance case study. Exhibit A, every GM PowerPoint, if picks are forfeited, rosters refreshed, stalls, Kawhi with Harden as a role depth situation can keep them competitive, but the ceiling is capped. Because here's the thing. With those two Akron situations, you can't get yourself caught up with just spending money. And if you notice, all of the potential free agents, because everybody's talking about 2027 being this boom year for free agency. What have we known these players to be doing over the last 8 years? We signed the contract with the team that we're with, and then we asked for the trade. Well, if the Clippers don't have draft picks to send to the team that has the superstar that's waiting to get out and get to LA, they're not going to be able to get these guys. They're not going to be able to they're not going to be able to render the new Clippers with the Intuit Dome, with whoever free agent A is or free agent B is. You don't have the assets to be able to do so. Now, the nuclear option is voiding Kawhi's deal. Feels improbable, but not impossible. Imagine it. PG gone to Philly. Harden gone because his hamstrings blew out, or whatever case may be. and Kawhi stripped by league action, Ballmer invests in dozens of companies. He can't control the downstreaming or marketing deals. A $50 million aspiration check doesn't mean it was earmarked for Kawhi. It doesn't. These are the things we know. Sponsor player deals are normal. From Steph Curry with JP Morgan Chase to LeBron James, and with Nike arena partners, stars sign with team sponsors all the time. It doesn't automatically make them cap workarounds. Like I said, the Lakers have long been a team that has told any free agent worth his salt, if you come to Los Angeles, we can put you in front of the right people that will be able to expand your wealth. You know, whether it's production companies, whether it's, you know, money marketing people, whether it's, you know, you're doing a deal with, you know, El Pollo Loco or whatever it might be. The Lakers have told people, like, you put on this uniform, it gets you a little more clout, which then turns around, gets you into more sponsorship deals. Do deliverables exist? Even if Kawhi's social presence is minimal, aspirations activations may have been private, be it business events, internal shoots, closed door sessions. Lack of Instagram does not equal lack of work. You know, when we seen Kawhi do a New Balance commercial where he doesn't even talk. I think he basically dribbles the basketball twice and then throws the basketball off to like Cooper Flag or something like that. Or Cameron Brink. Shouts out to Cameron Brink. Context does matter. Aspiration was a sinking ship. Sandberg's fraud conviction paints them as an unreliable narrators, relying on disgruntled finance as staff, whistleblowers. We got an email that introduced Kawhi to Aspiration in November of 2021 after his extension. That alone kills the conspiracy narrative. Steel manning is not an exoneration, but the defense is credible. Sponsors are messy. Aspirations was shady, and circumstantial evidence cuts both ways. If Silver sees ambiguity, guidance beats, penalties will be coming. This is going to be a sticky situation, and it's going to be held over this team for the whole entire year. I don't think it's going to be fine only. It all depends on what they find. And also, was it naivete, or was it like intentional? Will they find something in the emails that will scream intentionality in this situation, or was this a, hey, I'm a rich dude, my time is cut real thin, and I signed a bad business deal because it sounded like pie in the sky, it sounded great, I thought we could reshape the world. It turns out they sold us a bill of goods, right? Total exoneration of this situation seems far-fetched. The nuclear option of contract void doesn't seem like too crazy. Like, it sounds like that would be like, I think that would be just nuts. If I had to put a percentage on everything, so I would say 50% chance that it's a total exoneration. Then I would have to go 35% chance that there's a guidance and fine only situation. Then I would say it's a 10% chance of draft pick forfeiture, and then a 5% chance of contract void situation with Kawhi Leonard. That's just my thoughts on it. If the Clippers lose draft picks, how will they be able to continue to fill the Intuit Dome and also stay competitive in the West? I would love to hear people's thoughts on this. Hit us up on X at FrontrunnerPC or also at Rhea_Funch FRPC, or you can hit us up by email at frpcvince@gmail.com. I'm gonna tell you right now, good situations, good emails, good replies in the in our Twitter will be discussed on our pod on Friday. Speaking of contract signings, Cam Thomas signed with the Brooklyn Nets. Let's start this whole process. We've been talking about restricted free agents all summer, right? We also talked at the top that Josh Giddey signed his deal with the Chicago Bulls. It's 4 years, it's $100 million. The way it looks like it's going to break down, it's going to be $22 million the first year, $24 million the second year, $26 million the third, and $28 million the fourth year. Now, that's all well and good. We'll get to it on Friday when we have all of the accoutrements of that deal and what it possibly means for the Chicago Bulls moving forward. But we had a deal beforehand that we definitely need to get to because it is the nightmare headline, is the nightmare scenario for the Brooklyn Nets. After months of acrimony and stalled negotiations, the Brooklyn Nets could lose a 24-year-old who just averaged 24 points a game and get zero assets back in the summer of 2026. That's not speculation. That's direct math. Cam Thomas signed and he accepted the $5.99 million qualifying offer. This wasn't some cute bet on yourself moment. This was Cam saying, you don't believe in me, then I am going to the market on my terms. And for Brooklyn, this is the ultimate front office gut punch. Restricted free agency is supposed to be the team's protection instead of it becoming a trap door. Thomas is locked in for one season. He can't be traded without his consent. And then he walks scot-free into unrestricted free agency next July. So the big story isn't Cam Thomas scoring buckets this year. It's every possession doubling as an audition tape for 29 other teams. He's playing for his next contract. And Brooklyn is playing with the knowledge that their leading scorer could vanish with nothing coming back. It's like having the fastest car in the garage from one last race, but the keys go to someone else when the season ends. Soraya dropped this note in the chat. Always translate the qualifying offer into fan language. This team, this is the best player that Brooklyn has. This is basically the person, when there's 5 seconds left to go on the clock, who they giving the ball to? Cam Thomas. This is absolutely 100% for sure. Let's rewind the clock a little bit. Line up the breadcrumbs that got us here. Because this wasn't a snap decision by Cam Thomas. No. This was a couple years. Missed opportunities and negotiations soured until there was nothing left but the qualifying offer. In July of this year, Fred Katz of The Athletic reported, captured the league split perception of Cam Thomas. 16 front office execs were polled, and the range was fair. Contracts were all over the map. Some said 2 years, $20 million total. Some said 3 years, $90 million. Think about that. Think about that spread, that difference, that chasm in thinking of what Cam Thomas is actually worth. You had people thinking him as low as $10 million a year. And you have people thinking he was in upwards of $30 million a year as a player. In late July, the word around the league was Cam was the hardest one to price. Some execs loved the 24 points per game. Some couldn't get past the injuries and also the tunnel vision of scoring because Cam Thomas does not like to pass the ball. The consensus is that one, keep it short, right? 1 to 2 year deal where everything else was just, hey, we'll figure it out down the road. Now, in August of basically last month, right? Social media tea leaves started to give us a hint of what was going to happen. Cam unfollowed the Nets on Instagram. For fans, it was drama. For agents, it was messaging. Talks aren't good. In the modern NBA negotiations, unfollowing is sometimes louder than a press release. Then comes September 4th of this year. Deadline day arrives. Cam signs the $5.99 million qualifying offer in one stroke. Acrimony becomes finality. Brooklyn has no outside bidders to force their hand. The Nets were the only team with meaningful cap space, and they didn't put real money down. So Cam went nuclear. He took control of his own path, even if it meant short-term risk. Brooklyn could have secured the asset by dragging negotiations, then left the door wide open for Cam to slam it in their face. Restricting free agency is designed to protect teams. You draft, you develop, you should have the inside track to keep your guy. But the second Cam Thomas signed that $5.99 million qualifying offer, the script was flipped. The qualifying offer is a 1-year deal, usually a placeholder that the players almost never take unless the relationship is super strained. By accepting it, Cam instantly becomes untradeable without his consent. Brooklyn can't flip him at the deadline unless he signs off on it himself. And then when the season ends, Cam Thomas becomes a unrestricted free agent in 2026. No matching rights, no restriction. Brooklyn loses every ounce of control. So instead of RFA giving the Nets leverage, it boxed them in because they couldn't come up with a value for this man. So I'm going to tell you right now, there were dudes that sat in a office all summer long. And I mean all summer long, bro. All summer long. These dudes that work in the cap department for the Brooklyn Nets, they sat there. They banged their heads up against the wall. I'm sure they sent out models. I'm sure they sent out numbers. I am sure they talked to some of their boys around the league and said, what do you think about this? And for somebody who's 24 years of age, who's averaging 24 points a game, now, mind you, he is a chucker. I will not sit here and tell you that Cam Thomas is some sort of like beacon of virtue. Okay? He wants the ball to score the ball. He is not looking for his teammates. Okay, let's get this straight. Now, he'll tell you he probably didn't have teammates worth the damn to go ahead and pass the ball, to go ahead and get this situation squared away. But at the end of the day, it's a team sport. There's 5 dudes on the court. You got to make sure that you feed your homies. You know, I always talk about share the sugar. Share the sugar. Cam Thomas was not about that life. Nets spent years raising this score. Right? They gave him opportunities, and now he's about to walk for nothing. One exec told me, if your guy takes a qualifying offer, you failed. This is a scarlet letter for a front office. And that's what made Cam Thomas' decision so striking. This wasn't a bluff. He took a short-term risk for long-term control. Brooklyn, meanwhile, is now playing the entire season knowing that every bucket that he might get is definitely his last in the jersey. You know what I'm saying? It's the last buckets that he's getting. And they need him. If for some reason they're able to trade him, if there's some reason, some god for awful reason that they can't trade him, they need him to sign off on it. And here's the thing. If he knows that with the Brooklyn Nets, and because here's the other thing with this whole entire deal, the Nets are looking to tank this year. Drafted all 5 of their first round picks. If you look at where they drafted at least in 2026, they have an opportunity, hopefully, to get themselves into like the top 4. So Cam Thomas is thinking to himself, oh, I'm in the best situation. This team is not going anywhere. I can get my stats, I can score my points, and then I can hit the market and I can look as valuable as I possibly can. If I get traded, I might be pigeonholed into a situation that is not as lucrative for me. Now, I don't know if I agree with that sentiment. I'm not sure if that is the right mindset to have, but Cam Thomas is definitely taking the reins of his career, and he's deciding that I am not going to be burdened as an asset. I am going to be my own man. I am going to shoot this ball as many times as I possibly can. Like I said, don't know if this is the best course for him, but this is what Cam Thomas is thinking. Right? He's thinking about if you score, you get buckets, you're going to have value. Who's going to turn down somebody who's averaging 24, 25 points a game? Now here's some of the pushback that we'll talk about in a little bit. What does that all mean? Right? What does it all mean? Flexibility. They didn't want to commit to a number in July that would lock them into a 2 or 3 year deal, this being the Brooklyn Nets, that looked bad on paper. If Cam plateaued, instead of they left the file open, Cam closed it for them with the qualifying offer. Now here's the best part. Michael Porter Jr. is also on this team. Now they also have Terrence Mann. They got an unprotected pick from Denver in 2032. And then they got the 5 rookies that they drafted this summer. Developmental projects by Shore. None guaranteed to pop. And now the top scorer is sitting on a 1-year deal that expires into thin air. This isn't flexibility. This is fragility. It's like having a vault of gold bars and deciding to not insure them. Telling yourself, you'll move them later. Then one night, the vault door swings open and they're gone. This is true. Put this in Bobby Marks' language. You don't let a 24 point per game guy unrestricted free agency for free. You sign him to some sort of deal. You know, you work that out. Here's the thing. There's a divide in what people thought that he should make. He was definitely not getting $30 million, not from the Brooklyn Nets, because then the contract would have made him a net negative asset. If you sign him to a $10 million a deal person, that's kind of below his, that's below his value to that team. People were saying somewhere in the upwards of like 15 to 17 range. And that kind of was the sweet spot. But Cam Thomas looked at people that was in his draft class, like Emmanuel Quickly, and saw that dude was making 30 plus mil and said, yeah, I'm better than that dude, and I want that kind of money. And that's where the train went off the tracks. That's exactly where it happened. So when we sit here and we are like thinking about, okay, this is what the league is saying, but the players like, bump that. I don't know. I don't care what the league is saying. This is what I'm saying. This is what I want to get paid. And you can't come to some sort of agreement. You have all these months and you couldn't come to some sort of agreement. How does this affect the team? Real easy. Think about the guards on this team. You got Cam Thomas. You got Terrence Mann. Okay. You got Keon Johnson plus rookies like Igor Denham and Nolan Traore. Now for your bigs, you got Michael Porter Jr., another chucker. Another guy who likes to shoot the rock. Then you got Day'Ron Sharpe, Zaire Williams, Jalen Wilson, who looked good when he was healthy, Ben Saraf, who's a rookie, and then Danny Wolf and Drake Powell, also both rookies. Shouts out to Drake Powell, North Carolina. What's up? Danny Wolf from Michigan, for sure. With Cam Thomas and Michael Porter Jr. on the same squad, oh, low. You're talking about MPJ's quick trigger and questionable shot selection, paired with Cam Thomas' legendary green light, whether it's mythical or just in his head. It's not just basketball now, it's theater. Grab your popcorn and groans and a few, did they really just pull that? Head shakes every quarter, I'm trying to tell you. You're going to have people running up and down the court that's just getting cardio. Poor Igor Denham. Poor Nolan Traore in particular. They're playmakers by nature, but how do you develop your table setters when every possession is hijacked by two of the NBA's most eager gunners? They're not going to get any whistle for hesitating. They're going to ice out these rookies, late clock sets. There's going to be a lot of pounding the ball into the deck. And then with like 3 seconds left in the shot clock, we're going to shoot. It is going to be a laugh every possession, I'm trying to tell you. Here's the kicker. Brooklyn drafted 5 rookies known for sharing the ball, then getting buckets. But with Cam on that qualifying offer and MPJ always ready to let it fly, every one of these prospects is about to learn how hard it is to develop scoring instincts when you're standing around in the shadows of a two heat check machines. And remember this, Cam isn't just trying to win games, because he's not. Cam is auditioning for his unrestricted free agency. He is going to do everything in his power to raise his market value. He's going to jack up his usage, chase highlights, keep that scoring average north of 24. That means even more shot attempts, even more heat checks, and even more I'm him moments. Oh man, I thought he was going to jack up a lot of shots last year. Could you imagine what he's going to do this year? Brooklyn just drafted 5 guys. This is what Soraya dropped in the chat. Brooklyn just drafted 5 guys built to pass the ball, and now they handed the rock to 2 guys built to never pass it. That's a paradox on this roster. So here's a look at the 5 first-round picks, okay? So you got Igor Denham out of BYU. He's a 6'8", 6'9" guard. He was considered one of the best passers in the draft. He has vision that makes scouts salivate, but the jumper is broken right now. Under 30% from three-point land, and that was in college, so it was a shorter line. And without defenders sagging off, clogs the lane. He needs touches to learn. With Cam Thomas contract year diet, he might not get to touch the ball for eons. I'm trying to tell you. Then you got Nolan Traore, who's coming over from France. He showed flashes overseas, scoring 13 points. He had 4 assists during his best stretch. He's a rhythm guard who strives on reps. The problem is that it's going to be hard to get a rhythm when you got Cam Thomas and MPJ on the same court, because they haven't seen a shot that they're willing to pass up. Then you got Danny Wolf, who was basically a 7-foot point guard, actually handled the rock last year for the Wolverines. He was a 13 point, 10 rebound, 3.6 assist guy. In pre-draft workouts, he broke a team's 3-point drill record. He's polarizing because of his turnovers and his questionable defense. But if he can get reps, we can see if this works. But the problem is that you got MPJ and Cam Thomas stopping you from getting those reps. Then you got Drake Powell, who's kind of a connective glue guy. So he's definitely insignificant when it comes to this. He's not a comfortable shooter as of yet, and he will not become a comfortable shooter in this next year because he's not going to get any shots. And then you got Ben Saraf, who comes over from Israel and Germany. He's also another connective piece. He has a sharp feel for the game. He's unselfish to a fault. And guess what? Cam Thomas and MPJ are going to love that. Pass the ball to me, young fella. Pass the ball to your vets, and you'll eat well when we go out to the club at night. So, I can't wait to see this. I can't wait to see how this is all going to function. But I'm going to tell you right now, here's the thing that we all need to worry about. February 5th of 2026. Why is that date important? It is the trade deadline, complete deadline day. And if Brooklyn wants to get anything done, Cam needs to agree to the deal. So it's definitely going to be a team that's going to promise him a big role. It's definitely going to be a team that has cap space for 2026. And what is Brooklyn getting back in return? Is the other team just doing them a favor? Are they getting anything as far as asset redemption back? Because here's the thing. When you have a $5.99 million salary, it's not like you're getting this great player back. Now, Brooklyn can take money back in the deal. So if somebody was trying to come off maybe a questionable contract or something like that, they could do that and then be able to maybe flip that asset later. That doesn't even sound correct. So, what could you possibly get? Well, could you get picks? I don't think so. Because the team is going to be sitting there going like, hey, he doesn't even want to be here, really. He's just here because he can get all the shots that he could possibly get. And here's the other thing. Cam is on a mission to prove that he is worth $20 to $30 million per year. And who's standing in his way? Michael Porter Jr. is the other guy who has a trigger finger that doesn't need much convincing. So just the battles between those two guys alone and then these 5 rookies. Oh, and by the way, how long do you think Nick Claxton is going to want to deal with this? When does Nick Claxton ask out and says, this is a shit show and I don't want to be here? These are just things that just, rattle in the dome piece. So what's your thoughts on this deal? What thoughts are our hoopheads out there talking about with this? Was this a botch situation? Is this one of those deals where, hey, we're going to let this guy kind of fall off to the wayside? Do you even play him? Is there a point in the year where you sit there and go, we're going to come up with an injury for you or something like that, which that will definitely not sit well with Cam Thomas? Is that the way you find a way to get him to agree to a trade? Because the fork in the road is this. You could have signed this dude to like a $15-16 million contract. I am sure his agent would have said, hey, man, this is the best we could do. What we'll do then is we'll ask for a trade, and then we sign like a two 2-year, and then we can get out of it quickly. Boom, there we are. But now we're stuck in this. Let's go on to happier news. The All-Star game in 2026 is going to look a little bit different. It's about to flip to a USA versus the world showdown. It feels like they're always doing something with this deal. I think this might be the best way of going for right now. If you can't get them to play hard just because, maybe if you say foreigner versus America, that might be a way of doing it. For the NBA, I don't know how brilliant this is. For the players, could it be personal? Because here's the thing. There has just been apathy throughout the All-Star games over like the last 10 years anyway. Think of a versus battle, 2 camps on stage, smile, dap gloves, all love until the beat drops. And then every line is a haymaker. Could happen, because you got to think about it. What, Shea is out there. Some others is out there. We're going to get to some of this. Always set the stage beyond basketball. You want like American pride to be on display? Oh yeah, you use some USA versus the world. You know who's going to be real into this? Donald Trump. He's going to be real into this. And setting the matters, Clippers Intuit Dome in Los Angeles, home turf. You're going to see a lot of USA flags, I guess. Now, here's the other wrinkle to this deal. Poor Laker fans. Poor Laker fans. Watching Luka cook LeBron James every possession. After every possession. Oh, the humanity of it all. The discord in LA basketball Twitter that night would be chaos. You got fans torn between national pride and loyalty to the king. And just purple and gold shaded glasses everywhere. And here's the eligibility curveball that we need to talk about. Let's say for some instance that Joel Embiid is actually healthy this year. Does he count as Team USA since he played for them in the 2024 Olympics? Or does he flip back to Team World because he was birthed in the Congo? We don't know. That's a 7'2" dude that averaged like 34 points a game, about 3 years ago. And then there's the depth issue with the world, right? They're top heavy. You got Luka, Jokic, Giannis, Shea. But can they keep pace with the team? What Team USA rolls out there? You got Ant Edwards, you got Devin Booker, Steph Curry, KD, LeBron still's out there. We got a bunch of dudes. You know what I'm saying? We got waves of guys. This All-Star game is a referendum. The U.S. doesn't want to give up the throne. You know that. They wouldn't play hard. They would not play hard. So we got gimmick after gimmick after gimmick. But now we might get some national pride situations going on. The NBA isn't suddenly struck with altruism and saying basketball is a global language and let's sing kumbaya. Nah. This is about NBC and it's about their ratings. You know what I'm saying? NBC just dropped a bag on the NBA to get back on the airwaves and look at February 26th. Hold up. We got the Winter Olympics in Milan, Cortina. And then we got the NBA back. And then we got the NBA All-Star that happens like in February as well. The All-Star game gets moved to Sunday night primetime. Whew. I'm telling you right now, it's going to be crazy. So think about it this way. So you got Olympics, All-Star game, then Olympics again. Remember that 4-team tournament situation they had last year? That sucked. A gimmick fest, stoppages, in-game contests, ratings dropped 13% year over year, making it the second lowest rated All-Star game in history. Silver literally called it a miss. That's commissioner speak for, we thought this was going to be a banger, and it did not. It did not work out that way. So what do? You get the world up against the ugly Americans. Because if they could dig up James Brown living in America, they would. They would do that. I'm telling you right now. There might be scenes of Rocky IV played in the background of this joint. You know how they do, like, before the game, they have their little, like, theatrical opening. You imagine you got Sylvester Stallone out there. You got Carl Edwards. You got Carl Weathers out there. You got James Brown singing "Living in America" before the USA versus the world. Now, here's the other thing that we have to keep in mind. What happens if the USA loses? And you say, Vince, that could never happen. That could never happen. We dominate in basketball. We are the absolute King Kongs of basketball. There have been 8 straight MVPs, and every single one of them have been international. Jokic, Giannis, Embiid, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. This isn't the world knocking politely. They've already moved in. They control the playlist, and they got their feet on the coffee table. Look at the draft pipeline since 2010. At least 10 international players have been selected every year. That's not a blip. It's a pipeline. And there's some franchise dudes in these drafts. A couple years ago, it was Wemby. Not this last year, but the year before the Cooper Flag draft, we had a bunch of role players that were drafted. But you know who was number one? Zachary Ricochet. From where? France. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander won the MVP last year, and before that it was Nikola Jokic, and before that it was Joel Embiid, and before that it was Jokic again, and then Giannis was winning them. And then you have Luka sitting out here who got skinny. Is it his time? Well, here's the thing. The U.S. still has depth, right? We can roll out a bunch of dudes. That's true. But depth is also what Drake fans said when he had 700 million streams. Then Kendrick dropped Not Like Us. And suddenly the depth didn't matter. What mattered is who had the upper hand in the moment. And right now, the moment belongs to the internationals. Jokic is redefining center play. Giannis is still the most unstoppable downhill force in the NBA. Luka's turning 26, and he got on the Ozempic plan. You know what I'm saying? What does this all look like? How is this all going to play out? Who knows? But the American players, the young ones such as Anthony Edwards, now Jason Tatum's hurt, you can't worry about that. Devin Booker, they were to come to play, because here's the thing that you need to understand. You know who hasn't been happy with all of what has been going on? You know the dude that has really been like kind of going like, we not playing any defense whatsoever. Is the 7'5" freak of nature alien Victor Wembanyama. Think about that. Think about what that's going to look like. Oh, and by the way, he's going to have Giannis or Jokic next to him. Oh, by the way, they could have both of them next to him. You could roll out a front court of Victor Wembanyama, who shoots it from the outside, Nikola Jokic, who shoots it from the outside and the inside, and also plays point guard for the Denver Nuggets. And then you have Giannis, who is an absolute hammer. He's a sledgehammer, and he's just going to go to the rack every single time. What's your response, America? What is your response, United States of America? Is it going to be 41 years of age LeBron James? Is it going to be KD? Who's it going to be? Is Ant Edwards going to be out here by himself? Trying to tell you, we might have some things going on. Anthony Edwards is about that life. You don't think Ant wants to walk into an Intuit Dome as the face of American basketball? That's like a shoe bonus deal waiting to happen. The new face of Team USA. And Luka Doncic is just sitting out there going like this: I'm about to destroy people. And again, where does Joel Embiid's loyalties lie? These are all questions that we must have answered. We must have answered before this. Because this is going to be like the new version of The British is Coming, but in basketball form. Here come the foreigners. Here come the international dudes. And I'm going to tell you right now, these international dudes, if they get Victor out there and Victor is talking about, hey, we are not here to play around. We are here to go ahead and destroy this team, destroy these Americans. And then we got Shea, and here's the best part. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander just won the MVP, right? You don't think he would thoroughly enjoy getting every American in foul trouble before like the third quarter? I'm worried, America, that we are about to see something very ugly. And this is a little kind of like foreshadowing, because in 2028 we have the Olympics in Los Angeles, in the La. And those teams, albeit, won't be as stacked, obviously, as World versus the USA. But we better watch out for France. We better watch out for France. Because I'm going to tell you right now, they got enough dudes, and also Victor Wembanyama plays for that team. Good luck to the Americans. Yes, we got the depth. Yes, we got these dudes out here that should be hungry for just saying, hey, we got the USA on our jersey. Let's go out there and do it. But if the world wins, what does that look like? Also, if the world wins and Luka is, and you know how competitive Luka Doncic is, you imagine what that Laker locker room is going to look like the couple days after. He going to say, hey, I put it on you, old man. I put it on your ass. I dropped 30 on you. Easy work for me. Stay second behind me. LeBron is already losing the franchise to Luka Doncic. Could you imagine what that's going to look like when Luka is out here calling LeBron? Like, let's say LeBron is on another dude and Luka calls him up to the screen so he can get the switch and have LeBron on him. It's going to be nasty work. Nasty work. And if you don't come to play, if you don't come with the mentality, you're going to get embarrassed. The saving grace is this. You know, what's behind Giannis and Luka and Wemby and what have you? Maybe not much. And they're not going to let those dudes play like 38 minutes a game and all that sort of thing. So that might be the saving grace, is that the waves of players coming in after the five that are on the court, That's where maybe they make up the difference. But you know who's going to be in the game at crunch time. And if this game was close, and you got Luka, you got Giannis, you got Victor Wembanyama, Jokic out there all at the same time, this is like the Avengers coming together to defeat Thanos. And we come into this war with like a .22 pistol. Doesn't seem fair, does it? Well, give me your thoughts on US versus World. What do you expect to come out of that during the All-Star game? Did Adam Silver finally get it right as far as that's concerned? I want your responses. Hit us up on Twitter at FrontrunnerPC. Also hit us up at Rhea_Funch, FRPC. That's our Twitter handle. Get used to it. Start using it. Start banging it out. Pause on that. But start using it so then we can go ahead and get your replies put on the air. You know what I'm saying? Get your replies put on the air. And deal with us on Twitter. Go ahead and drop us an email. It's going to be frpcvince@gmail.com. Go ahead and drop us an email there. We'd be more than happy to read your responses there as well. Now, the last thing we need to say is this. The best part of you is you. Make sure you surround yourself with people who support you, who are giving you positivity, who are speaking truth, and they're speaking strength into your life. And if you have people that exhibit those behaviors, make sure you're acknowledging those people. Make sure that you are appreciating those who are giving you the strength to do the things you need to do on a day-to-day basis. Now, you can do that through a FaceTime. You can do that through a text. You can take them out to lunch, dinner, whatever the case may be. But make sure that you acknowledge those people. And if you're doing all that, we have a place for you here at Frontrunner Podcast Collective, because we want you to stay positive. We want to stay positive, and we will see your ass down the road, and we will see you on Friday. Deuces.